Hey everybody, welcome to Thursday Talks. I've got my friends here with me and we are going to talk about something so fun to talk about, which is understanding the Enneagram. So why don't we just go around and tell who you are and maybe tell if you know. So Enneagram, for those of you who don't know, Enneagram just means, Ennea means 9, the number 9, gram means type. There's 9 different types, 9 different personality types, and it's not just a personality thing, but we'll go into all that. Why don't you just tell who you are and what your Enneagram type is?
Well, I'm Malia. I'm the event coordinator here at TPC, and I am an Enneagram 4.
I am Emily Stewart. I'm the small group coordinator here, and I am an Enneagram 8.
Wow. My name is Rob. I'm one of the executive directors here at Turning Point, and I am an Enneagram 7. I bring the party most of the time.
I'm a 7 too, so I love
We got
it.
2 7s.
We're going to table with the fun people.
Yes. So what is the Enneagram? Well, first of all, I want to say this just to preface this whole conversation, and that is that the Enneagram is alone and of itself of no good.
Right.
Only through the lens of the gospel
Amen.
is this at all a tool that we
Yes,
can actually apply to
absolutely.
our life as Christians. This is
Absolutely.
not something that is above the gospel. The gospel doesn't need anything else. The gospel is,
Amen.
in and of itself, wonderful.
Yeah.
The Enneagram is simply a tool.
Right.
And I look at the Enneagram like, just like money is a tool. You can put money in the hand of a godly person and they're going to use it for something great.
Amen.
And they're going to use it for something good. You can put it in the hand of someone who does not know Jesus and who
Right.
has is full on in their sinful nature, and they're
Right.
going to use it for evil.
That's right.
And so this tool, like I say, in and of itself, it's nothing without the gospel. So with the gospel, it is something that helps us, I believe, understand ourselves better,
Yeah.
our sinful tendencies, our gifts,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
our the thing that we bring to the table, the good
Amen.
things
Yeah.
about us, our strengths. But it also shows us our tendencies and our weaknesses and our sins, so that we can apply the gospel to it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Because as we know, there was like the garden where everything was
Yeah.
perfect and wonderful and the way that God intended life to be. And then there was the fall, the sinful man. And then there was Jesus who came to redeem us. And so I believe that God is
Amen.
redeeming us. He's redeeming our even our personalities.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
let's just talk about that. What
That's
is
good.
the Enneagram to you? What's the Enneagram to you, Emily?
So I think the Enneagram is a great tool to know yourself better and to know others better. And I think the beauty about the Enneagram is, like you said, it shows us what we can be. So it gives us hope, and it shows us areas that we can grow to become more like
So
Christ.
good.
Yeah.
But it also sheds light on areas of our life that are dark that we
Right.
might need freedom from, you know? So if I know that I'm an Enneagram 8 and I know what my sinful tendencies are, it really just creates more self-awareness. And I think that's the best word that I can come up with for it. It's a very good tool for self-awareness, because especially knowing your Enneagram number and becoming a new parent,
Right.
I now know my tendencies. I now know my strengths. I now know my weaknesses, because I've really dove into this tool. And even in my 5 months of parenting, I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm seeing this Enneagram tendency come to fruition. I need to take a step back. I need to bring this to the light of the gospel. I need to take this before the Lord. Or it can be a strength that I can really press into.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
That's
Very
so good.
I think the challenge with any personality in life, especially when you're interacting with others, and by the way, we have to do that.
Yeah.
God's
Yeah.
called us to live in community, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges with personality differences is if we don't understand each other
Yes.
and we don't take the time to learn about one
Yeah.
another, we can't get better. And
Yeah.
we can't help others get better. And so we end up stuck. Paul said it like this. He says, I haven't arrived, right? I haven't arrived, but I've left. I'm not where I used to be, and I'm not what I'm going to be. And I think that's what, to me, Enneagram helps us discover. It is self-discovery. It's self-awareness. It has helped me immensely in the last year and a half of learning about the Enneagram. It's helped me like crazy understand my kids, understand our staff, the people that I oversee, the people that I'm under. It has helped me tremendously,
Yeah.
man. Do better.
Yeah.
And not getting stuck.
Yeah.
Right?
One thing I love about the Enneagram is, like you said, how it teaches you about other people that you work with.
Yes.
Because you really need to understand the personality types of the people on your
That's right.
team.
That's
and
right.
it helps you understand the strengths and the weaknesses of those you work with, so that you can better help them,
So
right?
good.
Like, having the different personality types in a team is almost good, because
Yeah.
you can help fill in the gaps for
Yeah.
where the other person may be lacking. So that's one thing, like, since I've worked here that I've loved is getting to know the staff,
Yes.
but also getting
Yeah.
to know their
Yes.
strengths and their weaknesses so
Yep.
that I can help be a better part of the team.
So
Well, even
good.
in marriage, I don't know if you know the number. We'll
Yes.
put the link to it when we post it. But there's a book on marriage,
Oh, yeah.
relationships, and the Enneagram, and it takes you through. Like my spouse is an Enneagram 7. When I learned his number, it set me free because I was always like, why don't you go deep? Why are you always on to the next thing? And when I read the Enneagram, I was like, this is you.
Yeah, it helped
But
me
this
with Melissa
book,
too.
yeah,
man.
it really
Big
helps
time.
you like understand your spouse or that person that you're in a relationship with. So that book is a great tool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It helped me. I'll agree with you on that 100%. My wife Melissa's a 1. She's an Enneagram 1, and so she is very structured,
Yeah.
and so my excitement and spontaneity.
Doesn't excite her.
Oh my God, drives her crazy. So we've had to learn how to give and take, and I equate it to being on a dance floor. You have to learn how to move with each other. in
Yes,
rhythm.
absolutely.
It's just so important.
And I think it really helps you develop compassion and
Yeah.
empathy. Like empathy is something that
Most
I
of
really
the time.
believe when people don't have empathy, there's such opportunity for division and frustration
Absolutely.
because you only see things from your point of view.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're already, all of us as Christians,
So
we're trying
good.
to get God's point of view on everything. We're already trying to transform our thinking to the way that God thinks. And so it's really hard for us to see things from other people's
That's so good.
Yes.
viewpoint and vantage. And so it's like when you understand Enneagram, you're like, oh, that's why you look at this like this. I'm looking at it like, woo, it's a party. Let's have fun.
Yes.
And you're looking at it like, no, but there's got to be structure and there's got to be
Yes.
order and there's got to be, there's
Yeah.
just
Rules
there's just,
we have to
yeah,
follow.
the rules we got to
and
follow.
we don't like rules.
Listen, I have to say, there's a lot of 7s on our team.
There
Oh
is.
yeah.
And
We are
I was
rule
like,
breakers.
Lord, and I am like super structured, organized, and I'm like, Lord, you got to help me with the 7s.
Give me
because-
grace, Father.
Give me
Yes.
grace.
Yes.
Help me help them, Lord,
Yeah.
and help them help me.
Yes.
Because we need
Yes,
each other,
we
but
do.
we have a lot of 7s on our team.
Yeah, and just to give kind of a brief for those of you who don't know all the
good.
numbers, and I have to always look, so I brought my notes with me. But the one personality is the principled reformer. They're all about the rules.
Yeah.
The 2 is a caring nurturer, that person that's always serving other people. The 3 is an achiever, the success oriented achiever. The 4 is a sensitive creator. The 5 is the perceptive observer.
Yep.
The 6 is the responsible loyalist. 7 is the joyful enthusiast. The 8 is the strong challenger. And then the 9 is the easygoing peacemaker. And really, something to understand about it is that it's not just a personality type. We were talking earlier, it's really about the motivations behind why you do what you do.
That
The
is so
lens
good.
that
Yeah.
you see life
So
through.
good.
It's
Yeah.
the way that you, kind of the way that when you were born, the way you learned to cope with the world and to survive. And so it's really your motivation. So you may have similar characteristics of behaviors.
Right.
So it's really
Right.
not about
Right.
your necessarily behaviors, but
Right.
it's about your motivation. And that's what I love about
That's
it is
so good.
discovering, what the motivation is, what the gifts are, what the weaknesses are. Because everything can't be a party all the time.
No,
You do
right.
have to
Unfortunately.
get things done. But we learn, as we grow in Christ and
Yeah.
as we grow to learn to look at our life through the lens of the gospel. It's like,
Right.
okay, God, I know that you created me like this and you created me to see things like this, but you
Yeah.
created her to see things like this.
Right.
And so how can we work together
That's so
to
good.
become the best versions of you, really?
Yeah, that's
We're
it.
working not just to
Yeah.
become the best version of us, but to
Yes,
become the best
again.
versions of
Yes.
Jesus that we can become.
Yeah.
But we have to look at it through the filter of the gospel.
Yeah.
And I'm very firm on
Very
saying that
good.
because when we say, what is the origin of the Enneagram? I'll say, when I first heard about the Enneagram, I was like, I saw a pentagram
Me
or whatever,
too.
and I was like, oh no, like stay away from that. That's a no good.
That's satanic.
That's satanic. But anything that God makes that's good, the enemy comes in and perverts. What did you say
He
about the
does.
pentagram?
Well, if you look at the pentagram, it's an upside down Star of David, which is the symbol of the Jewish people, God's original kids.
Yeah. So it's like he just
the enemy
perverts
just
it.
He did it in the garden. The apple was a good thing.
Yeah.
He comes in and he perverts it and gets it twisted just a tiny bit.
Yeah, just
and
enough.
sin enters the world, because of Adam and Eve's
And that's why we want to
mistakes.
we want to make sure that we're clear on the origins.
Yes.
And so instead of going through all the origins on this
Right.
particular talk, because I don't want to turn into a teaching, we're going to drop some resources in the comments, and so you can see
Yeah.
that the
Very
origins of the Enneagram. There's a podcast that I recommend Christians. This is, again, you have to look at this through a Christian worldview. Your Enneagram coach, Beth McCord, has a podcast
Awesome.
where they go into theology in the Enneagram, and they show you all the origins. They go through the names of every single person, how it morphed and changed throughout the years, and how people use it. But again, I say it's not an idol. It's not. You don't
Yes.
have to. You don't even have to do it.
Right.
It's
No,
not
it
doesn't matter.
necessary
There are
for
other
life.
tests you can take to help you
Right.
learn yourself
Yeah.
better.
There's
You
a
know.
million different
for
personality
real.
things, but it's
For
just
real.
something that it's just a tool that's helped us. So I will ask you this: what's your biggest takeaway? Like, what have you learned? What are some wrestles that you maybe have had with the Enneagram?
So good. Can I speak?
Sure.
So you and I are both married to ones.
Yes.
Pastor Michael, who is our senior pastor here at Turning Point, he's a one.
Yeah.
And so they are rule followers.
Yeah.
I did not understand that. Pastor Mike and I have been best friends for 25 years. And so there were things about him that would frustrate the mess out of me. Me too. At one time he was on staff and I was the senior pastor, and he would just frustrate. He would be in my office all the time just because of the way he thinks.
Yeah.
Well, when I began to study this, it helped me understand why he is the way he is. And so I began to embrace the strengths that he brings to me. Because as you said,
Yeah.
sevens, we would be partying all the time. We would get nothing done. Nothing positive would take place. And so we need that counterbalance, if you will. And I think that's what is so powerful about understanding one another, understanding one another's strengths. You're going to bring something to us I can't bring to
Yeah.
us.
Right.
We need
But I'm
each
going
other.
to bring something to you that you can't
Yeah.
get without me,
Right.
right? And so I think those are brilliant parts of understanding the different personality
Well, and I
types.
think, too, the biggest thing that we have to be careful about is that we can't use the Enneagram as a tool of manipulation or an
Right.
excuse
Yeah.
to stay where
Talk
well,
about
I'm just
that.
an 8, so it's going to be this way, or I'm just a 3. We have to use
Talk
this as a
about
tool
that.
to get
That's
better and
good.
become more like Jesus. And it exposes our sinful nature. It exposes our flesh, especially being an 8. Like, who wants to be known as a reformed challenger? You know, like, I'm just like, that's not something I walk in the room and say that I'm proud of. But I know for me, like, my basic fear is of being harmed or controlled or being in a place where I'm vulnerable or being in a place where I'm exposed. And my basic desire is to protect myself at all costs. And
Yeah.
so now that I know that, and now that I'm more aware of that, when those feelings rise up or when I start to do that, like I said earlier, you can take a step back, but you have to use this tool as
So good.
a tool to get better. Like we
Yeah.
have to do
Right.
that. And it can't,
Right.
the truth of the Enneagram cannot become louder than the truth of the gospel. I will say that. I think something that we have to be careful of is it can become all about the Enneagram or the DISC personality test
Right.
or what are you?
Yeah.
We have to press into the truth of the gospel louder. This is just a tool to help sanctify us to become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
And so, like you
So
said, the
good.
lens we have to wear.
And I was thinking the same thing, that the Enneagram really helps you identify areas where you can strengthen yourself.
That's right.
Because
Right.
it's not a this is who you are type of thing.
Right.
You see maybe your basic fears, or you see areas where, it's maybe a weakness for this Enneagram type.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, Lord, I can work on this. Like,
Yeah.
how do I get better at this? I remember you and I had a
So
conversation
good.
about this. And I said, you are a mature 7 because you have learned, I've observed you. And I'm like, he has really taught himself, even though it may be harder for him to stay focused, you have trained yourself
Right. Yes.
because
Yeah.
you have to.
Absolutely.
You can't have a party all the
Mature.
time,
Right.
So you have,
Yeah.
and it's same
That's
thing for
right.
me. I always really struggle with like going with the flow. Like I get really stressed out going with the flow,
Yeah.
like audibles. I'm like, no, Lord, I can't do it. But like, I have
You
been like,
learn.
Lord, you have to show me
That's
how
right.
to do
Yeah.
this better.
That's
It's
right.
not a this is how I am, so this is how it is.
Right.
You have to teach
So
yourself
good.
Yeah.
and
Right.
align yourself, like you said, with the word
Right.
and the truth of God so that you can mature
Very good.
into the
Right.
well-rounded person God has
Right.
called you to be.
Well, and she brings up a really good point, because when you study the Enneagram, each number goes to a different number in stress
It
and a
does.
different
Yeah.
number when they call it
Healthy.
growth
Healthy,
and
growth,
stress.
healthy,
So for an Enneagram 8, when I am at my healthiest and my best, I act more like a 2. When I'm stressed, I revert, go inward, and I act more like a 5. Funny story, I actually took the Ian Cron test, which is like a $120 test. I gave you a 40-page result. I took it and tested a 2. Being the 8 that I am, I read this and I remember going up to somebody, I was like, I'm so sorry, but this is not who I am. Like, I know me. I am not saying this isn't, I don't want to be. I just know
Yeah,
this
that's not
isn't
it.
me. Well, after it was 8 weeks of Enneagram coaching. Jackie Brewster is a phenomenal Enneagram
Yes.
coach. Enneagram with JB. We'll link her
Link her
social
for
media.
sure.
I spent 8 weeks coaching with her to realize that I was an 8, but when I took the test, I was in a healthy place, which was likely why I tested as a
Yeah.
2,
Very
because I was
cool.
answering the questions from a place of health. So I think
so
that's
good.
good to
Yeah.
know when you study, know how you know where you go when you're healthy and know where you go when you're
That's
stressed.
good.
Because
Yeah.
7s, when they're in stress, you guys go to a 1. Where do you
1.
guys go in health and growth?
5.
A 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
When we're
5s
growing.
are very structured, very orderly. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know.
Think things through.
Yeah.
Make sure you
Process. We get all the
process it all.
details. We get all the facts.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
learned that, it set me free about
Yeah.
me, you know?
Yeah.
And even when I learned about my wife, about Melissa, it helped me understand her needs.
Yeah.
What she, because I was, as a 7, we don't like to deal with stress. We don't want to dwell on the negative. We're positive pie in
go
the
party.
sky.
Keep it pushing.
We are.
Yeah.
We're positive pie in the sky. We're focused on the positive. But if we get too overwhelmed, we can go to 1.
Yeah,
Oh,
easy
yeah.
peasy.
And we
For
can
sure.
become critical and
Yeah.
self-critical and self-doubters. And so we have to be very guarded in that. And so, but it helped me understand why she needs some private time. Why she, because I used to want to be around her all the time. I had to be right up next to her all the time. We had to be talking all the time. And she doesn't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She needs private
Space.
time. She needs space to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it helped our marriage immensely, like crazy.
And I'll say that the best way that I've heard from multiple people is the best way to find out your type is not just the test, like you said. So tests are good. Those are great. Those can be indicators, but it's really you reading about all the different types and knowing yourself.
That's so good.
If you're self-aware, you kind of know more about yourself. And
Not
so,
who you want to be, but
not
who you
wanna
are.
be, but
Who
actually
you
who
really
you
are, right?
and get real about that. So, and it doesn't pigeonhole you. Like people
No.
are like, I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be this. Well, you know yourself best.
Yeah.
Which do you identify with the most?
Yeah.
And then especially those motivations and fears. But one thing that I learned about the Enneagram and the history of it is at one point, like when people were using it with the personalities, they would not even disclose what they were. It was supposed to be like a really private thing.
Oh, really?
That's
Because it's very vulnerable for people to know your strengths, your weaknesses.
Yeah.
But
Because they can manipulate
I'm
you.
like,
yeah, that's
true.
But
That's a good
today,
point.
now, I mean, everybody's like, so I feel like the era we're in now, everybody is like, we just want to know
Like full
everything.
disclosure.
Right.
Nothing's hidden.
Overshare, yeah.
Full
You know?
disclosure.
So
uncomfortable.
But it is. It's like, oh, I don't really like you knowing that this is my weakness. But just real quick as we close, I will just go around and I'll tell some of these things because I think these are important. So with the 1, the principled reformer, they have a gift and it's goodness, but they can also struggle with resentment and anger because they want things to be perfect.
Yep.
They really want things to be good. They want things to be right and
Yep.
morally right. A 2, they bring love and they're the nurturers. They represent the love of God, but they can also struggle with flattery and pride.
Yeah.
And then 3s, they're the success-oriented ones. They really have a gift of efficacy and grit. They bring that to the table, but they also struggle with deceit and vanity. And then the 4, our beautiful 4, sensitive, creative, and they represent the creativity of God. And but their weaknesses could be that they could be melancholy or envious. 5s, perceptive, wise, all-knowing. They represent the wisdom of God. But they can struggle with stinginess and greed.
Wow.
And then we're all thinking about people that we know.
I know.
which is not going to
Yeah, we can't do that.
Through the lens of Jesus.
You gotta view them through their gift.
That's funny.
And
That is
then
funny.
the sixes, responsible, loyal, loyalty is their gift. And then, but they struggle with fear and being coward. Sevens, we are the joyful enthusiasts. We represent the joy of God.
Yes.
But then our weakness is that we can use planning as a means of escape. We like to plan, but we do it as a means of escape, escaping reality. And then gluttony, there's never enough. Gluttony meaning we can never get enough of a good thing. Like we just want more and more and more and more. And we have to understand that Jesus
cake.
alone is all we need. We don't have to have more. We have to have limits. And then eights, strong challenger, they represent the power of God. But they can also struggle with lust and vengeance. And then nine,
I want to get you.
I'm going to get you.
Mess with my people.
And then nines, the peacemakers, they represent the peace of God, but also they can become lazy and slothful. So anyways, I'll tell you the way that I really, so I told you I pushed it away when I saw the pentagram, but I embraced it when I listened to there's a podcast I love called That Sounds Fun by Annie Downs. And she does something called the Enneagram Summer. And she'll have two people on that are that number,
awesome.
a specific number. And then she'll have an Enneagram coach on to talk about the weaknesses, the strengths, the lens of the gospel, and put it in perspective. And it just helped me so much
it's
to
been
listen
awesome.
to it. So
Yeah, that's good.
I would totally recommend that type. We'll link that into the notes. But I think all in all, I think that we can all come to a consensus and agree that it has helped us
Absolutely.
become
for
better
sure.
followers of Christ.
Absolutely.
It is, and I had one person say to me, well, I don't think self-awareness is important. I think it's supposed to be self-denial as a Christian. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. We are supposed to deny ourselves, but we have to understand ourselves before we can even
Before we can
deny
deny.
ourselves. Like, I have to
Very well
understand
stated.
and be aware of my weaknesses, my
awesome.
gifts. Because if I become focused on my weaknesses and what I
Right.
can't
That's
do,
so good.
Right.
I'm going to be so disempowered. But if I understand that I have both, I have gifts,
Yeah. Yep.
then I can lean into my gifts and try to work on those weaknesses
That's exactly
and submit
right.
them to the cross.
Very,
Well, and
very
for
good.
those who are like, if they're watching this video and maybe they don't know, I think it's important to note that you can't be two types. So like you have one
Yes.
type, you're a 1, a 2, a 1 through 9. And if you don't know, maybe like if they're struggling, they've taken, because some tests will give you like percentages and
Yes.
your percentages might be the same. Dive into the motivations more than the behaviors
learn.
because it's about why you do what you do,
Right.
not necessarily just what you do.
Right.
So it's all
Right.
about
Very good.
our core fear, our core desire, what we need. Some tests even give you like a childhood message that you've longed to hear. That really helped me as well because each number has a message that they long to hear.
Yeah, that
So
we desire.
if you find your one type and your core motivation, I think that also helps you as you're on the journey. But it's a journey. It's an awesome
good.
journey.
Yeah,
you know?
So
it
good.
is.
So good.
So good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks,
Yay!
y'all. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you will enjoy this conversation. Check out all the resources that we've linked.
Share
and
it
we
with
look
people,
for yeah,
too.
share it for sure.
Share this
Share it
with
with some friends. It'll help your relationships, I believe, so very much. We love you.